Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to talk to you very briefly today about the Mercury Retrograde in Aquarius and Capricorn that we are now having. This will be a quick and impromptu video where I will be stream of consciousness-ing about this transit, and it is coming to you during Mercury Retrograde, so hopefully it will be clear and resonant for you, though always you never know what could come up in a Mercury Retrograde video. So yes, what do we want to talk about today? So firstly, this Mercury retrograde is happening from January 14th until February 3rd, and it is retrograding on the cusp of Aquarius and Capricorn. So yes, that is very interesting, isn't it? What are the odds that Mercury would retrograde on the cusp that has been so active? The signs Capricorn and Aquarius have been the two major playing signs ever since 2020, when we had the triple Capricorn conjunction of Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn. And then, of course, by the end of 2020, when we had the grand, incredible Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, okay, the new wave conjunction. So now we have Mercury coming in to do some housekeeping of its own over those degrees. What does that mean? Okay, we have to kind of get things right. So we've had a foray into a new world while keeping perhaps one foot in the old world. And for a lot of people, they are going to be putting anchors down during this transit, as we have, of course, the Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces playing a big role in this too by semi-sextile, meaning that there's kind of something totally out of left field that is more important, but nonetheless, we have certain updates or corrections or new frameworks to implement within the previous constructs too. So it's kind of like a juggling act during this Mercury retrograde, and we do really have to become, I suppose, talented jugglers or talented movers of energy. So there's no stagnation here and now with this Mercury retrograde, and that's something that I really want to impress upon you all, is that the major stagnation that many of us were dealing with through 2021 or even 2020 as well is going to be really scrambled up, okay, with this retrograde. And there's going to be a more cardinal focus that comes in because Mercury will retrograde from Aquarius to Capricorn, meaning that it's going to backtrack. Any retrograde means backtracking, but this one specifically, because so many planets moved from Capricorn to Aquarius and now having a retrograde and moving back over those areas in the zodiac, says to me that there's a holistic backtracking. There's actually an opportunity to reclaim something, to move backwards, or to fix something, to make some type of update, okay, to really get things right. I talked a little bit in the full moon in Cancer video and in the January comprehensive astrology video, I'll link both of those below, about how this Mercury retrograde starts out conjunct Saturn, or very close to Saturn. We have, I think, a lot of positivity because of that. I find that to be very good for us because it's going to anchor down or ground some of these super flighty, super erratic mental storms that a lot of people have been having. Mercury conjunct Saturn serves to really ground a mindset and to make the mind a little bit more formidable. Okay, so not having to fake it, not having to put on a warrior face when you don't feel that way. It's really going to get us back on the right track. So what we can do, I think, to facilitate this is to calm ourselves in as many ways as possible, to make sure that we're not introducing things into our lives, especially like stimulants or any type of thing that contributes to an overactive or non-grounded mind. Again, having had the nodes move, or in the process, also being on the cusp, right, of Sagittarius and Scorpio, Gemini and Taurus. There's such a big mental shift coming. There's such a big change in so many people's philosophies. So many people's ways of thinking are just like totally different. And you could probably already see that a little bit. You might kind of no longer be believing in an industry that you thought would be the only thing for you forever. There could be a big change in general philosophy. And this Saturn conjunct Mercury, I think, is very good for us in the sense that we need to have some type of weight in the mind. Like, we can't just afford anymore, I feel, to be stuck in mental back and forth, to be stuck in thinking about things but never following through, to be stuck in the mind. So this entire retrograde from January 14th to February 3rd is going to send us back. It's going to ask us, what mindset was I in when I made that decision? Was I healthy when I made that decision? Was I coming at that from a powerful place, or was I coming at that from a desperate place? Okay, that's big. That's an important channeling. I got chills everywhere. The difference between coming at something from an empowered place or a desperate place. Empowered versus desperate, with that cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius, and also the Saturn and Sun and Pluto, okay, and Venus moving up as well. This is going to be a very, very strong mental catalyst, okay? So we might not see it. Some people will. Some people will have the material results depending on like the house that it's transiting in their chart. But specifically, you might not see a change in the outside world. You might not see that like the people around you have actually changed, or like they might be living in the same place, they might be having the same job, they might be having pretty much the same stuff, but they could totally change the way they think about things. Like you could see that people who had a grudge against you no longer do now. You could also see that people who didn't do. Like there could be a big paradigm shift in the way that people around you think, and also in the way that you think. You might feel very differently about a position you carried for a long time. I'm seeing people maybe making people who have been hard-lined in their, I don't know, political, economic, any of those things that have once been very hard-lined for certain people could be changing now. There's basically a big global shift in the way that people perceive their experience. So a big perceptual shift, a big gestalt shift here. And the Mercury retrograde is going to really be asking some major questions. I mean, the retrograde itself doesn't ask questions. That's, I suppose, a linguistic feature, but under this transit, many people could find themselves asking questions they never asked before. They could be finding themselves scrutinizing, criticizing, or taking a second look back at choices, mindsets, philosophies, even economic choices, geographic choices that they've made in their lives, and have a totally different outlook on it now. I'm seeing this as such a benefit for most people, because this is like real stuff, real changes that people are coming to in their minds because of where this Mercury retrograde started, conjunct Saturn. This is like Saturn, like Mercury got up to Saturn, and Saturn was like, you got to go back. You got to take a look back at some of this stuff. Like, this is wild. Like, this is crazy what you've either involved yourself in, or the way you've been thinking, or the way that you've been working it. And not is it that way for everybody. You know, some people who have really already grown up, matured, and done that Saturn stuff, you know, Mercury's getting up to Saturn, and to those people, it's like, well, you're going to have to go back and look at it anyway. Like, you've done it, you know, kind of like how an accountant or a CPA, even if they're like super knowledgeable, might like prepare the tax return. And, you know, even though they know that they put in all the numbers right, they might go back and look at it anyway and get that confirmation, because, you know, it's big stuff on the line that they might be dealing with. But if you're that new, you know, really wild accountant, you're like, I'm typing this right, I don't need to go back and look at this, you know, that's a problem. So we have a very important need for going back and editing, going back and reviewing, going back and looking. An interesting time for any type of auditing or any type of look back at what was expressed or what was submitted, okay? That can happen during this time. Or there could be issues with things like that. But it's kind of a wake-up call for a lot of people, where it's like, can what you're putting out stand up to scrutiny? It should be able to. This is one of the difficulties of the era that we live in now with the Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, and Capricorn. It's very scrutinizing. It's very, very attentive with details and looking back over what was expressed or what was attested toward. For some, okay? And then it's weird because Capricorn energy also is not necessarily like that for everybody, but it is good for everybody to think about it, and for everybody to think about, like, what am I putting out? What am I asserting? And is that quality, is that having any type of error or any type of anything like that, because we really want to get this stuff right. And I mean, it can be simple stuff too, like diet, like what does it mean to eat fast food like 4 or 5 times a week for like 5 years? Like 5 years later, you eat fast food 4 or 5 times a week, and you look back, you review that, you sort of audit your diet, I suppose, and you see some sustainable results from those choices. And now there's a really important and really beneficial opportunity here to look back and think, wow, I ate fast food, hypothetically, I don't do this, I ate fast food 5 times a week for 5 years, and now this is going to have to change. So people maybe need to moderate their experiences a little bit. And that maybe needs to change to like, well, now it's going to be once every other week. And then 3 months from now, it's going to be once a month. And it really is okay to eat fast food, once or twice a month. Like, things in moderation are fine. Though if you are hard-lined about it and are completely no fast food policy, I respect that. But this is really about moderation here. And this Mercury retrograde deals with moderation. This Mercury retrograde deals with looking back. It deals with scrutiny. It deals with criticism. But this is more of an on the individual level. I mean, depending on what house it's transiting in your chart, but I feel collectively it's more on an individual level, because it's dealing so much with mindset, since this is Mercury, of course. So it's really about looking back at how you thought, or about how you consider about. It's a very prosperous time to see a self-debilitating process, any type of self-fulfilling prophecies that are not correct, that are debilitating, can be fixed during this time. So for a lot of people, that entails, an inspection process, or looking at everything that you do and proving to yourself and getting it as right as it can be. And working on mitigation in your life is a good thing too, just to get things to the point where you're like knowing that this is a fail-proof kind of thing, or as much as it can be. Nothing is fail-proof. Because we don't want to also veer to the other side and become like wild with making things guaranteed in life, because there's no guarantee of anything, but we need to mitigate and moderate as much as we can so that we have security. Because I think that this particular Mercury retrograde is about secure mindsets. It's about securing things in our lives that lead to healthy mindsets. So having a secure diet, secure budget, secure business, secure all of that stuff leads to healthier mindsets. So it's trying to look back over all that stuff and make sure everything's in order, basically. And I think that the universe will be really supportive to getting that stuff right. So anyway, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this brief chat here on Mercury retrograde. As always, there can be the typical things like communication errors or weird little minor annoyances, but this one is much more about mindset. Okay, so while those physical things can always happen, that is less likely during this Mercury retrograde, though it is, of course, nonetheless there. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful time of it. I'll talk to you soon. Do check out my Patreon page linked below if you want to get bonus weekly tea chats and support this YouTube channel. So thumbs up and comment below. Those are wonderful free ways to support the channel, and have a wonderful go of it. Much love. Bye.